Welcome back to another episode of the King's Pulse podcast presented by the King's Herald. My name is Brendan Nunez, and today we got Frankie Cardacelli of KHTK, Return of the Roar podcast, joining the show. How's it going, Frankie?
Good, Brendan. Good morning, sir. Just one morning after a Kings win, maybe one of the better games of the season. So feeling pretty good, or torn, depending on how you're feeling in the the push for a top five pick. But I think it's kind of hard to not be impressed about what we saw last night. So I'm feeling a little optimistic right now. Not about making the play-in or anything like that, just about good basketball. The Kings played a good basketball game last night, so I'm feeling good. How about you?
I am with you. We don't get all too many good basketball games, and there were even some highlights in that one. There's the Dante or Chemezi to Dante, and then Dante back to Chemezi lob. Demonis Sabonis throws it down
Like
on
2 minutes apart.
Vucevic. True, yes. And there were a lot of Chicago fans in the stadium, which I get is maybe not a great thing, but I actually thought it made the environment weirdly fun. Because I think that as Sacramento, like they had a 20-point lead at the half, which we'll get into kind of reasons a little bit in a second here, but as they as Chicago starts to come back, there's an energy in the stadium for the Bulls. And I think before, when we've seen these blown leads, the life of the stadium just disappears. And so I think like when the Kings have a 1 point lead and that was previously 20, but then are able to go from like 1 to 3 or start to extend it a little bit more, like that bucket has a little bit more. It gets the fan base going a little bit more because they feel like they're fighting against the Chicago fans in the stadium. So weirdly was a cool environment because of that, but I don't know if that's just me.
No, I don't think I've ever seen a Bulls game like that. And I think one thing I can compare it to a couple years ago, but right before COVID happened, I think it was earlier in the season, was there was a Celtics game where there was a lot of Celtics fans. And this was in your Celtics guy, right? So it was, I believe it was Kyrie, Jalen Brown, Tatum, that team. And it was when the Kings won by, I think, 2 points. But it was kind of like the crowds were trading um, cheers back and forth, which kind of keeps the energy going. It kind of reminded me of the Laker game too, how it's a lot of Laker fans you see at Golden One. And last night was a lot of Bulls fans. And you could tell from when we were sitting there watching pregame stuff, I don't think I've seen, maybe when the Warriors are in town or Lakers, like I said, but there was a lot of red in the crowd. And the energy, like you said too, you're kind of fighting against something, because when the Kings against the Knicks, wasn't too many Knicks fans in the building. When they give up that giant run, the energy in the building's just gone. It's dead. It's quiet, and you're fighting against nothing except just being bad. But the other night, last night, the Kings, they show some fight, and it kind of, I think, goes into that. They feed off the crowd. Professional athletes tell you they feed off of the crowd. They feed off of that energy, and last night was a prime example of that. And the Kings, instead of rolling over and letting, which I think a lot of us expected to happen in the late third quarter, early fourth, when it became a 1 point game, that it was going to be another one of those classic Kings blown 20-point leads. You can accredit it to having that energy in the building, and just the fact that the team, they just looked different last night. It could be different lineups. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about Dante DiVincenzo in a little bit, but um,
If
it
you
was,
want to get into Dante, go ahead. I think that's the first one up.
well, I mean, off the bat, the energy just was better. I mean, on Twitter, people were going crazy as soon as we got to put out Dante was starting, because people have been, and I don't know if it's just people on Twitter or people that aren't on Twitter. So if you're out there and you're not on Twitter, if you were wanting that as well, it was pretty loud, the Dante to starting lineup hype, and we got our wish the other night.
We definitely did. I kind of felt like maybe I had been pushing the whole Dante should start thing for a little while, and was surprised that I started to get to a point of people being like, well, it's just because he's not that good. Um, and I get it. Like, he had been frustrating for sure. There's multiple possessions a game. There might have only been one yesterday, again, in that Chicago game, but usually you get about three a game where you're like, why would you do that? But it's really just those moments. And outside of that, I think he does all the little things really well. He just has very loud mistakes sometimes that I think are hard to overlook. But, it's interesting. Like, I wrote a article that went up on the King's Beat, actually, James Ham's newsletter, about Dante. And why I thought it was so weird that he wasn't getting minutes, that he just needed more opportunity. And it was right after he got 11 minutes against the Denver Nuggets, which, what? Like, that's the lowest minute total he's played all season long, including the 17 games with the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, with Milwaukee, again, team that is coming off a championship win, he never played less than 15 minutes. And he played 11 minutes that night. And then he went in that game in Utah, played 17 minutes. And then you see Justin Holiday come out with a COVID-related illness in the second half of that, or not, sorry, a non-COVID related illness. Definitely got to be clear with that one. And then Dante gets a little bit more opportunity, and he gets into the starting lineup here in Chicago. And I think that what was interesting to me is, like, after we got to talk to him the first game that he played as a member of the Kings, they played in Washington. He talked about how he was not only fighting his rhythm, getting back from injury. He, went 200 plus days without playing a basketball game. So not only was he fighting his own rhythm, he was fighting against rotations. Like Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen are getting more opportunity than him. And honestly, for good reason over there. Like, I get it in Milwaukee. They need production right now. But I would assume that when you get traded to, he was like, when I got here, this team had 20-something wins, so I'm going to go with the 20-something win Kings. I would assume when you go from the championship, reigning champions, to the 20-something win Kings, you're thinking that you're not fighting for a rotation spot in the same way. Maybe you're fighting for proving that you can be the fourth guy or something, but not fighting where the low end is 11 minutes. So I was concerned about just that being frustrating for him. And he's about to go into restricted free agency. If he even slightly had a thought of they're doing this to try and lower or not have my market value this offseason spike, I think he would have every reason to be pissed if he thought that's what was going on. And you just got rid of the guys that did not want to be on this team, that were clearly causing problems. Don't make another guy have an issue with the organization and not want to be here. And maybe because of circumstances with Justin Holiday being out, but man, I really like those 34 minutes he played in Chicago. The stats don't pop or anything, like 15 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. There's a steal, 4 of 9 from the field, 3 of 9 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line even. Like, he doesn't, I think that it's like what I said earlier, his good things don't necessarily pop, but the mistakes do, and that makes it easy to kind of like target him. But I don't know, man, I would really feel a type of way if Dante's not in the starting lineup and they go back to Justin.
They wanted him for 2 years. Alvin Gentry said pregame yesterday when asked how the organization views him, he said, well, we traded for him twice. That's all you really need to know. That's how much we like him. And to that, I say, prove it. You start him yesterday, and that is that's the most points he scored as a King last night. 15 points. The 7 boards jump out to me just because I've said before he's such a good rebounding guard, and there's not too many of those. I think Josh Hart is one that's named a lot. Obviously, Russell Westbrook can rebound, and I don't really want to get too into the Westbrook hole after the highlights we've been seeing and that you showed me last night in the middle of the game. Had to have a laugh about that.
Horrible.
Yikes. Big yikes. But Dante, yeah, I say prove it. If he's going to be a part of this organization and he's going to be on this team and you wanted him this bad, let's see it. Because Justin Holiday, and again, it's not a knock to Justin Holiday. He's an NBA vet. He's an NBA champion. He's been around for a very long time. He'll be 33 years old pretty soon. And he has 1 year left on his deal. The Kings are probably going to match any offer for Dante. And like you said, if they are doing this to drive down his price, him and his agency should be very upset. I don't know if that's exactly what the case is. I would guess that Gentry's kind of going with the veteran in Holiday because they technically, as of a week and a half ago, were still in the hunt for the play-in. That's kind of changed now. And with that change, let the young guys play. Let De'Aaron Fox and Dante DiVincenzo play together for the next 11 games. See if they can kind of mesh with each other. See how that trio of Fox, Sabonis, and DiVincenzo play together, because that's probably your core unless you can add to it in the offseason, which you hope they will. But for right now, those guys and Davion Mitchell need to be the priority, and seeing them play together. And we saw it a lot last night. I'm impressed with what I've seen from him when he gets the opportunity. Because, like you said, that game against Denver when he played 11 minutes, that was coming off his best stretch of his season. Prior to that game where he played 11 minutes, he had scored 11 points per game and shot 45% from three over 5 games. And then the next game, he just doesn't score a point and plays 11 minutes and virtually is out of the rotation for one night. And then Gentry tells us not to read into it. Well, I just think that with 11 games to go, the priority should be see what you have. Because right now the team is ahead of where they were last year. Last year that they were, who do we need to get rid of and get off this roster? Because you had Marvin Bagley, you had Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes even was a name you didn't want to get rid of him, but it was a we need to either shed salary or we need to switch things up. Things have been switched up. And the Tyrese Halliburton discussion is one that everyone will have till the end of time. But you have an all-star caliber center in Sabonis. You have a man named De'Aaron Fox who is playing better than probably 99% of people in the NBA right now. And you have some veterans. You have some veterans in Harrison Barnes, Dante DiVincenzo. What happens to Harrison Barnes, we'll see. But I would fully tap into Dante DiVincenzo over the next 11 games. See if he can get his feet back under him, literally and figuratively, after that ankle injury, and just see where you are come this summer.
Yeah, definitely with you. Good point. Like I didn't mean to come off as, and not saying that you were saying this, but just for clarifying even further, that I'm not saying like that is what was happening with Dante when it comes to him getting limited minutes. That it was
No,
to
Brendan,
manipulate his
let's
contract
stir it up.
situation.
Let's
Yeah,
stir it up, Brendan.
Let's do this.
What are you
They
being
don't
told?
want Dante. They already regret it. They wish they had Bagley.
let's get it out there.
God, yeah. So I don't, not saying that is what's happening, but I see how somebody could come to that conclusion, especially Dante or his agency, and feel a type of way, understandably so. And like you said, like figure out what you have. If he plays himself, he's not at the point. It's 11, 12 games left. He's not playing himself way above where we're at right now. People aren't going to put a crazy amount of, I mean, unless he goes nuclear and averages 18 over these last games on stupid shooting, like maybe somebody decides that, okay, this is that guy, you know? But like, to me, he's not going to play himself to a point where he's getting overpaid ridiculously. If somebody wants to overpay him, they're already at that point where I would assume that's how that team values him as a prospect now, and it's not about these last 10 games. So get an understanding of who he is and how he fits as this duo. Is he somebody that you think can be the long-term starting option at the two? Like, I think he could be. Do I bet on that? Like, if I'm forced to, I kind of do lean yes, but I don't feel great about that.
He started he would have been the starting two guard on the Bucks last year, and whether that would have helped or decreased their chances of winning the finals, I don't really know if it would have made that much of a difference really, because Giannis was literally scoring 40 points per game in the finals, but he was a starting two guard on a championship team until he got hurt. And I'm not here going to sit here and, like you said, I'm not going to. I feel totally married to the idea that he's the two guard for the next 4 years, 3 years if they sign him to a deal. But as far as upgrades go, realistically, I don't know if the Kings going to focus on bringing in a power forward. That should be the Trey Lyles. All due respect to Trey Lyles, is the starting power forward right now, and I don't know if that's going to be something that they can roll with on opening night next year. So having Fox and DiVincenzo, Davion Mitchell as kind of the head of your guards there, that's not a bad start. Now they're going to need some changes, and that could mean that they bring in another shooting guard. And if DiVincenzo's your bench two guard, I can live with that too. I can live with him just being in the rotation and playing 30 minutes per night and not having those random 11-minute. I don't know. That was just a weird thing against Denver. But as far as upgrading the roster, I could see a team with Dante DiVincenzo starting next to De'Aaron Fox. I feel like they complement each other well, especially with DiVincenzo's ability to knock down threes. We're seeing him kind of improve as time goes on. And I know that you made a point that he's much better off the catch than he is on the dribble. So De'Aaron Fox, even though he's scoring 30 points per game right now, the assist numbers are there. The ball movement is there. Then you have Sabonis as well in the fold. DiVincenzo can be a guy that can kind of float and get open and knock down those shots when given the opportunity. It's going to be a matter of who can the Kings bring in that is better than Dante DiVincenzo. And right now, I say, let's see what you have in him first, and maybe we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
I'm definitely with you. On the catch and shoot compared to pull ups, since he's come to Sacramento, 13 games now, he's shooting 5.1 threes per game and averaging 34.8%, which is not bad. You know, he's getting those numbers up after a pretty tough start. And 3.6 of the 5.1 3-point attempts, 3.6 of them are catch and shoots. And he's shooting 44.7% on those. And then 1.4 pull ups, 11.1%. And again, it's important, like, these are small sample sizes. We're only working with 13 games. It's not a sample size where it's not ridiculously small. I think it's something, but it is notable that, like, you know, he doesn't have these massive differences earlier in his career, but he also wasn't getting the same amount of pull-up attempts. And to point it, like you said, he was starting for Milwaukee, the team that ended up winning the championship, even if they didn't win with him being the starter throughout the playoffs since he went down with that torn tendon in his ankle. Like, he's the fourth or fifth best player on that starting lineup. Like, I think that if you do, like, if he's your third option, you're not doing good. Like, but that's just the reality of the rest of the roster, like you said, or Harrison's third and Dante's fourth option. Like, I think you still have an issue there. You need to get another guy, ideally above Harrison, where everybody then has a little less responsibility, and I think it makes a lot more sense. I think that Dante's totally starting caliber in this league, but he's the role player to complement the other top-end guys, which is Fox and Sabonis. You know, like, part of, I think, him being in the starting lineup and why we heard people preach it so much is, like, he's doing a little bit too much in these lineups where it's him and Davion Mitchell and maybe Domantas Sabonis. I guess that would be the most typical one where he's just trying to do a little bit too much sometimes, and he would have less responsibility playing alongside Fox and Sabonis, and we kind of saw that. So I'm really encouraged. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how we go into the next game, because we'll see how Justin Holiday comes back. And, you know, Holiday's played bad, like, just straight up bad since he's come to Sacramento. He's shooting 29% from three on 6.2 threes a game. He's, like, just so inconsistent with his shot. He's not that level of shooter. He's a good shooter in the NBA. There's probably a comfort situation and just a lot of varying factors when you get moved to a new team and so many new guys on this group. I've been one to kind of defend him in the way of, like, everybody's just like, yeah, he's so bad. And I'm like, no, I think he's a good bench guard. He's just being asked to do too much, but there was not a single minute yesterday where I was like, I wasn't consciously thinking or watching for, is there any minutes I would rather have Justin Holiday out there? But I never naturally was like, man, I really miss Justin Holiday.
No. I mean, I don't know if anyone was really saying that. And a lot of people on Twitter, I was getting a lot of responses about, I don't miss Holiday. Where's Holiday? Is Holiday going to come in and play? Holiday's going to come in any second. Yeah, he's been tough. And I don't think the Kings necessarily were trading for Justin Holiday when they made that move. They were trading for Sabonis, and you know, they had to make it work for financial reasons. So again, he has 1 year remaining on his deal. I think he told me last night he has $6 million left on his contract.
Yes.
Yeah, which makes him makes him movable this offseason. Could make him as a part of a bigger deal. It's something that the Kings, I don't know if he's going to be on the team next year. I don't know if that's something that we can say for certainty. But I can say with pretty fair certainty that Dante DiVincenzo will be. And I'm guessing that DiVincenzo knows that. I mean, he says in his pressers, he's talking about the future and next year and being a part of his team. I think that him and his agent both know that the team's going to match whatever offer is given to him. And like I said, it kind of takes it back to my, if you value him that much, prove it. And Holiday has been tough. The final 11 games, start DiVincenzo, because if next game tomorrow night when the Kings play the Bucks, which, by the way, setting it up for a beautiful revenge game.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of this.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
revenge game, and the Kings haven't beaten the Bucks in, I think, 6 years. So, how fitting would that be? They have never beaten the Bucks at Golden One Center. The last time they beat them was February of 2016. So, what a better way to break that curse than Dante DiVincenzo putting a 30 spot on the Bucks.
I definitely looked up his career high as we're talking about this.
What is
24?
24? I was gonna guess.
Reasonable.
I was gonna guess higher. I was gonna guess maybe he got hot one night and just kind of knocked down like 6 or 7 threes. But
I would have thought the same. I realized I have Dante clips to play from last night.
Yes.
So before we move on from him, I want to throw these in there. We'll start with how he opened up the presser. Actually, no. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with one that's a little later. He talks about this one is asked of his comfort starting versus coming off the bench. So, yeah, here's Dante DiVincenzo post-game after the Kings beat the Bulls.
Prefer that versus the backup role? Do you have?
I mean, I that comfortability is. I mean, I was doing it in Milwaukee last year, so it's just like an energy thing. It was like a routine thing for me. But whenever my number is called, whether it's coming off the bench, whether it's starting, for me, it's just always got to be ready. I think my mindset is. My energy is contagious for this team, and my attitude is contagious for this team. So that's what I try to focus on coming in every day, whether I'm starting or coming off the bench, playing 15 minutes or playing 35. It doesn't matter for me. If I can control that and give confidence to guys like Davion Mitchell, who played out of his mind tonight on both ends, that's the stuff that I need to focus on going into the offseason.
I love it.
Well
I think
spoken.
that, right. I think that there's an aspect of like maybe, because at first I wanted to be like, oh, like it's so nice to hear a guy say I'm just here to play my role sort of thing and shine in my role. And I'm like, I guess Marvin said that this year too. But it's the things after that of I'm here to be infectious with my energy and give confidence to other guys. And I think that was also something I was starting to worry about with Dante is like, I think there was a real aspect earlier this year of the ball doesn't swing so much because when I catch it, I'm thinking a little bit about giving it to the next guy over because what if it eventually reaches Buddy or Marvin? And you felt like there was a distrust between some guys on this roster. And I started to worry that maybe we could get there. And again, I don't think that we were reaching that at all, but I saw like the beginning of me being concerned of you just have to do everything in your power to avoid that from happening. And instead going in the opposite direction of having a level of confidence that if I give it up, it's going to eventually get to a good shot. If not, it might even come back to me if I put myself in a good position. Like, I think that that's what we're seeing a little bit more with this team as these guys get comfortable with one another. Again, a level of confidence and trust in the guys alongside each other. Like we're always hearing that the pace and the ball movement is when this team is playing best. And I think we've definitely seen that. So we'll have to see how Dante continues the rest of this year and if like that comfort can stay, because while I do think that like the case I made for him getting opportunity makes sense, like at the same time, no player is entitled to minutes, and that's going to change a lot throughout next year and years beyond, where if he does get moved to the bench, he's still going to need to perform, even if that comfortability isn't there. But I think that I guess you can find a sense of comfort of just understanding what your role is on this team on a night-to-night basis, even if it's as the sixth man or the fifth starter. So, but yeah, I think it's interesting, and you pointed it out, and I don't have it in these clips, but like he definitely talked about, and Sabonis did this as well. De'Aaron Fox did it in the piece that James Ham put out. Sabonis did it in the piece that Sam Amick put out. They're all talking about this offseason and meshing together and moving forward. And it makes sense for Fox and Sabonis to say that. Dante is a restricted free agent. And so for him to just bluntly say that, I think is telling. Like, and you would assume, I would guess from his point of view, like this team just traded for me. Of course they want me around. But it it's nice to hear him kind of confirm that. And I think that comfortability with him being in the starting lineup was definitely on display.
He said it twice too, or 3 times about next year and or us going into the off season and being able to work together. And I don't think we're hanging on to words by pointing that out. I think that again, when you're a restricted free agent and the team has traded for you twice and failed once and then finally got you, he has to feel good and feel valued. These guys really want me. Now, again, coming off the bench and having that weird game where he didn't play much, that might diminish that a little tiny bit. And like you said, it might even make you a little angry and speculative that you're trying to diminish his value in free agency. But I've said it before, the Kings are going to be able to open up next year with three guys really in De'Aaron Fox too. De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, DiVincenzo. I feel great about opening up a season and having a full 82 with those guys. So that's the goal. It's kind of a running saying, this is the biggest offseason the Kings have had in 16 years. Well, last year was 15, this year is 16. This is the biggest offseason the Kings have had since the playoff drought. With these guys they have as their core, now it's time to surround them with other talent. So let's see what we have. Dante, 11 games. Alvin, let's see what we have in Dante. Let's give him a shot. I think it's warranted.
Yeah, and like James Ham pointed out when I was kind of trying to talk through, like, it doesn't even make sense for Alvin from the point of view of, like,꯫ Fighting to get wins right now. Like, not only is Dante somebody that you need to be figuring out how he fits for the sake of this offseason and your decision with him, he's just producing better too. So I think it's going to be hard for Alvin to not keep him in that position. This is the one other quote we have from Dante of, it's a great opening quote, and it translates to other guys on the team. Dante DiVincenzo here.
Confidence is a hell of a thing. And I think for not just me, I'm just talking in general from top to bottom. I think we came out tonight and played with a lot of confidence. Even if we missed 2-3 shots in a row, they made a run. We still came down. We had confidence, and that's contagious. I think so. We have an amazing group of guys in that locker room, and when we don't get down on ourselves, when we don't get down on each other, and we play with that confidence, and we have that confidence even in the locker room, good things happen for us.
How impressed were you with not only just your defense, but some of the plays that Harrison, Davion, some guys made down the stretch of that game?
We have a good defensive team. I mean, we have a lot of guys on this team that can guard multiple positions, and I think that's the beauty with us. I think we can play around a little bit more with different coverages and kind of mix it up for the other team. But it goes back to what I say. It just gives us confidence on the defensive end when Fox is in the post and he can guard a 4-man in the post. I think it's great for us, and we keep building off of it.
Definitely an aspect of believing in each other. And like, as Chicago's going on their run, they've blown a bunch of leads. The Kings, that is, recently 19 point leads in the first half. They just completely disappear in the third quarter. And I think that as Chicago was going on their run, like, Sabonis stood out to me a lot of, like, being pissed at his teammates, like, in a constructive way, like getting in their face, like, wake the hell up, clapping, screaming at him, like, and it looks aggressive at first, but then he's, dapping him up, and, like, it's all good. It's for the sake of wake up. Like, we're all trying to win this game. And I think that was the first time I'd seen that from Sabonis so bluntly to his other teammates. And we've heard a lot about De'Aaron being a more vocal guy since Tyrese went out. And I think that that's really encouraging. And the guy, when I see, like, confidence is a hell of a thing, Dante falls into this. But my God, like, De'Aaron Fox looks like the most confident version of himself we've ever seen, right?
Yeah, I think last year he had a similar stretch, but to me, this stretch is even more impressive because I don't believe he posted 40-point games twice over, I think, 4-game span. Yeah, he scored 41 points against Utah. 2 games before that, 44 against Dallas. He's averaging 30 points per game almost over his last 15. I guess I can give you the full stretch here. The last 15 games, 29.5 points, 6.7 assists. The assist numbers are continuing to stay up. 4.3 rebounds. And he's shooting 51% from the field and 39% from three. That's not a small sample size. That's 15 games. That's over a month and a week to be specific. It's kind of giving you, if you lost hope in De'Aaron Fox, you should have that hope again and have that kind of that like that confidence that he is a guy that can be an all-star someday. And it kind of comes back to the question of why is this happening now? It's not to point fingers at Tyrese Halliburton and say, hey, these guys couldn't play well together, and maybe they would have figured it out down the line. We don't know. We never will know. But I think we can now say with 100% certainty that De'Aaron Fox is the best version of himself when he has the ball in his hands the entirety of his time on the court. He needs to be the point. He needs to be the primary ball handler. He needs to be the floor general. And we're seeing that paired with the fact that his shots are falling. And I'm not just talking floaters or attempts at the rim. He's knocking down those deep mid-range 3-point shots, which we've never seen before. I put out a tweet last night saying De'Aaron Fox is turning into a shooter right in front of our eyes. And his dad quoted it and said, he's always been a shooter. I don't know if he's always been a shooter, but he's looking more like one now than I've ever seen before over the last 5 years. So kind of what sticks out to you when you look at his game? Is that what impresses you the most, his shot, or just the fact that he's kind of just going full speed ahead with that confidence that we haven't seen so far?
Yeah, I think they kind of go hand in hand, like earlier this year, those 15 games that you pointed out, like, are all the games since Tyrese was traded. The first one was without Domas, but then the other 14 were since Domas started playing, and then Domas missed the Denver and Utah game. By the way, birth of a child is what was going on. Shout out to Domas, and congratulations there to him and the family.
Dad Domas.
There you go. 43 games played before Tyrese was traded for De'Aaron Fox, and he was averaging 3.7 three-point attempts a game, 24.8%. In those 15, the 3.7 per game is up to 5.4, and he's shooting 37.5% or 39.5%, excuse me. Like, the way that he's getting these shots up, when he hit 4 in that first quarter against Utah, which obviously an outlier, and sometimes you're just kind of feeling yourself a little bit. And then he hits 3 of 8 in that game against Chicago, but he's quick to pull them. Like, if guys go under, he's looking to punish that, because if that's an area where players are not allowed to do that anymore, De'Aaron Fox becomes a whole different animal. And I think that's kind of what we've seen. Right now, he's still getting guarded that way, and he's just making them pay. But if you can do it consistently enough where we're actually seeing a change in scheme, and every time De'Aaron's asked about, like, oh, what's going well for you, he's like, I'm just playing basketball. Like, he's like, shots are just kind of going in. I'm feeling good. Alvin said he's like, looks rejuvenated. I think that we all can see that. And man, yeah, if De'Aaron Fox, even if De'Aaron Fox is just a 32% 3-point shooter like he was last year, I still think he's got a coin flip chance of being a future All-Star. Like, he's All-Star conversation every year, still, in my mind, or close to it.
And the free throws, I mean, over that 15-game span, I believe his free throw numbers are, 76%. That's not fantastic, sure, but I believe his career mark is 71 or 72%. So yeah, he's getting to the free throw line, and that's on 6.1 free throw attempts per game. He still, I think, ranks among the top 15 in free throw attempts per game this season. That, coupled with the 3-point shooting, he could be, what we're seeing right now, he could be a 30-point per game scorer. And that's not being, I'm not being crazy for saying he could be a 30-point per game scorer. He's doing it right now over a month plus of basketball. So, yeah, the defense, of course, is a conversation that will probably have to be addressed at some point. It's still not fantastic, but you can kind of see it. I think you pointed out to me too. You can kind of see it when that flip switches, when he really just, that intensity picks up, and he really has to kind of reach back and go get it. Like we saw it against Spencer Dinwiddie in the Dallas game. De'Aaron did a good job of locking him up late and forcing some stops. And
Alvin talked about it last night, actually. He said, like, when you have Dante and Davion out there, like, guys that are able to guard the ball handlers, and Fox isn't forced to run through screens a bunch and exert so much energy on the defensive end, that helps him on offense, and the moments where he is forced to be engaged on defense, that you're kind of limiting the effort that he's exuding in every single minute that he's out there, because he's playing a crazy amount of minutes. He played 42 minutes last night. He's playing a whole lot of minutes, to the point where he's talking about, well, back in the day, guys used to play 42 a night, so maybe it's not ideal, but like this is fine. So yeah, I think that he's freaking playing great. And as much as I'm like, man, I miss watching Tyrese play basketball, I missed watching this version of De'Aaron Fox play basketball.
It's similar, right? I was thinking about that too last night, how it's so similar, how you're kind of coming to expect it. Like I'd come to expect Tyrese putting up a double-double each night for that couple weeks there when De'Aaron was out. That 2010, it was kind of like you went into a game and you just knew he's going to do something special tonight. And it's almost unsurprising. It's just fun. It's fun to watch. And last night he gets 34 points, and it didn't seem, there wasn't really a stretch of the game where I was like, okay, De'Aaron's red hot. He scored 4. No, he's doing it fluidly in the flow of the game. He's not forcing. That's why his field goal percentage still remains to be 50% and above that mark. So it's very inspiring to me to see it. And seeing him and DeMontis play together, the thing that the team will have to figure out, and Monty will have to figure out, is, like you said, De'Aaron's playing huge minutes. They need to be able to survive with him off the floor, because Alvin said it again, I think, what game was it? 2 games ago, how he wanted to give De'Aaron a little bit more of a rest. I think it was in Utah, but they had to get him back out there. And you need to be able to survive for 10 minutes per night with De'Aaron Fox not on the floor. And right now they can't really do that.
No, yeah, that happened last night too in Chicago. I think De'Aaron sat for because right now he plays the entire first and the entire third. Maybe he has a random moment where he sits for 30 seconds, the last minute of the quarter, and they go for, that's like the one time that you see a non-Fox or Sabonis lineup, right? And I always am like writing it down and logging it, and I'm like, I need to calm down. This is 45 seconds here. But yes, like he plays the entire first, the entire third. I want to say he only sat for like 2.5 minutes before it was like, okay, you need to get him back out there, because what the hell am I watching right now? And then he goes back out there, and they do really well to close that game, because it's not like Chicago didn't cut it all the way down. I don't know if they ended up regaining the lead. I know they cut it to at least 1.
They never did. And, I'm writing my little recap there, and I was ready to kind of put, well, the lead was finally given up, and no, they didn't. They blew a 20-point lead almost. So you can't really say they blew it. They almost blew it. They had a 20-point lead, and it came down to 1 with, I think, 8 minutes left. But I can't recall ever seeing a game like that where they blow a lead, but then don't completely give it up, and they kind of fight back and hold them off. And that was, again, a fun night. Yeah. De'Aaron Fox, Dante, a part of that.
Yeah, and that was rare before. I mean, still rare now, because we've seen a lot of blown leads like Dallas, New York. I think they got a lead on Denver. Utah, that was always pretty close. We did see like a similar thing with San Antonio. They had a 19-point lead, and then San Antonio brought it all the way back, and then they still kind of held on. So yeah, I mean, I'm choosing to take like they always blow the lead, but the fact that they're able to gain a significant lead against, like, it's not like the Bulls are, sure, they don't have Lonzo Ball, and that's the significant only one missing, right? Like Patrick Williams out all year.
Everybody else is playing. Yeah, I mean, and they've been playing bad lately. I didn't realize they've lost, I think, 7 of 9. They've kind of been sliding lately, but they still have a good team. The talent is there. That's a team that's gonna, I would imagine, go. I mean, they might not make it out of the first round in the East. You never know. The East is tough this year, but they're a good team, and that doesn't mean the Kings are a good team. And we should really hang on to the fact they won this game. It just gives you kind of a glimmer of hope for seeing these guys together. Sabonis kind of struggled, really, if you think about it. He didn't have a rebounding night that we've seen him have. 7 rebounds. That's the least amount he's had as a King. DiVincenzo had maybe his best game as a King, and then Fox is doing what Fox does. So, again, just taking those pieces of information, kind of putting them in your pocket for the summer, and just kind of going from there.
Definitely. You see what like they can be. And I think another guy, Dante definitely talked him up a little bit at the end, said Davion had a really great game on both ends of the floor. And both those guys have talked each other up. Like earlier at shoot around that day, Davion was talking about how he loves playing with Dante. I am not surprised in the slightest that those guys like playing alongside one another. They both play similarly and have that like dog mentality where I'm just gonna bother the shit out of this guy and play some solid defense, and just the effort's ridiculous. And then they also have like flashes on offense where maybe they're a little bit inconsistent, and this is where Davion's interesting, right? Like prior to the All-Star break, there was a lot of optimism around like, okay, he's in a rhythm, like because coming into the year, we don't know, is he a good 3-point shooter? Was his senior year at Baylor just an outlier? His free throw percentage just still sucks. So where are we at? And 10 games before the All-Star break, and this is alongside Tyrese with De'Aaron out with that ankle sprain, kind of weird situation, ankle soreness. But 10 games for Davion prior to All-Star break, 16.1 points, 4.6 assists on 45% from the field, and 39% from three on 6.9 threes per game. So feeling really good, and then comes back around, and his minutes really diminish because also in that 10-game stretch, he starts 7 of them. He's averaging 31 minutes a night. And now, kind of similarly to Dante, like there's one night in there that he plays 11 minutes. I think he actually he got a little bruised up at one point and went down for a little while in that Denver game, but ended up coming back out. But he goes from the 30 plus minutes in the previous 10 to now the 10 after the All-Star break, where he's averaging 23 minutes a night on about half the points, 8.4 points, 2.4 assists, and 40% from the field, 22.9% from three. And I typically leave out his free throw percentage because he's not good at it, but it's not just that. It's also super low volume. So when I'm talking like 10 games, it's 1, 3, 6, 8 different free throws. So that's why I end up leaving that out. But yeah, I mean, it's really these last 3 games where he's actually hitting from 3, 2 of 4 against Chicago, 2 of 5 Utah, 2 of 5 Denver. Because prior to that, he made 1 3 in 2 of the previous 7 games, and outside of that, didn't hit a single one. Where are you kind of at with the just ups and downs that we're seeing from Davion on the offensive end?
He's streaky, and it's not awful because when he is good, he's really good. And like you said, last night he was really fun to watch, and the way he kind of can play off the dribble, going to the rack, he's kind of like I think I put out something saying he's like got a layup package that could be elite in a couple of years. Any Kings fans out there, it kind of reminds me of Tyreek Evans, the way he'd kind of drive in and kind of get up there with his right hand on the left side of the basket. He can get to the rim, and he's very skilled at that. The 3-point shot is where it kind of needs to really bring it all together. We know he can do on the defensive end, and he's been playing well over the past couple of games. But looking at it as far as the whole season, 10 points per game, 40% from the field, 31 from three, over 40% from the field and 31 from three. I'm not mad about that. I'm not too mad about a rookie averaging that in his first NBA season. The free throw things, the free throw percentage, 55% is just, it's tough no matter how you slice it. And yeah, it's low volume. He doesn't get to the line too much, but that's got to come up. That's Tristan Thompson level right there. Shout out TT, by the way, back at Golden One last night, picking up a quick 5 fouls. That was
Very quick.
very quick. But no, I'm impressed with Davion, his ability to kind of bounce back from those tough performances. It still remains to be seen how the Kings really want to use him, because we talk about Dante a lot. Is there a possibility that they envision him playing next to Fox at some point? Because him and Dante are kind of similar. I wouldn't say they're exactly the same type of player, but they're defensive guards that have ability to knock down threes. And obviously Dante is kind of having a weird year. He's coming off of injury, but I feel like their shooting is kind of similar. But it's something they have to figure out this offseason. Again, nobody's untradeable, as we've all seen. There's a possibility that Davion's moved in a large deal. I'm not saying that's going to happen, or I think it's going to happen, but you never know. Backup point guards around the NBA. I feel like Davion might deserve more of an opportunity to play than being just a bench guard playing 19 to 21 minutes per game. I think right now, what's he averaging? 25 as a rookie. Yeah. I mean, is that going to stay the same if the Kings lock down DiVincenzo or bring in another guard to play too? So that's kind of what they need to figure out. But he's streaky. When he's good, he's good. Even when he's not playing well, the defense still is there. He hasn't had many games where he's looked completely lost on the defensive end. And last night, he was just completely all over the place defensively in a good way. Him and Dante both were a lot of fun to watch. And I think having those two guys in the lineup, that's something that could be a positive in the future, is two guys that can play in your face, smothering defense on the floor at the same time. Not too many teams in the league that have that.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And we saw like a closing lineup that I'll probably pull the numbers a little bit later today to see if we've seen it before, but we saw Fox, Davion, and Dante all on the floor with Harrison and Domas Sabonis as the 4-5 with that group. And I really liked it. Like, I think that Justin Holiday, again, like, I think he's a fine 8th guy on your team. I don't know how you justify playing him over these other two. Like, the unique skill strength that Justin has over those other two is shooting off movement. He's not hitting shots at a great rate. The other guys are still capable shooters. Well, I guess sometimes they have moments where maybe it's a little tough. But I think that they're better defenders, Davion and Dante, that is. Dante just straight up in every scenario that you would play Justin in. I guess like Justin is more of guarding 2 threes while Dante's guarding, or while Davion is guarding 1s and 2s. So maybe if you need somebody to guard a 3, I see why you go towards Justin over Davion. But then also, like, sure, Justin Holiday hypothetically provides shooting off movement and the threat of that. But if opposing teams like just close out really hard, he's not putting the ball on the floor and then driving and kicking and making plays from there. Like, I think that's the other sneaky aspect of this, is that you want the ball swinging from left to right. So, like, quickly and well, Dante and Davion alongside Fox and Sabonis give you that. Like, I don't think that Dante or Davion should be initiating the offense themselves on, for stretches of games. A couple possessions, sure. But when they are just like a cog that keeps the machine rolling of ball movement, I think that that's a really underrated aspect of going to them over Justin Holiday.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out earlier with when Buddy and Marvin and some of those other guys were here, the ball would stick. And bringing in Dante DiVincenzo, Davion Mitchell being in the lineup, they're already ahead in that regard as far as the ball movement is there and the ball's not sticking and they're running actual offense. And that's why I think you see last night in that game, things look so fluid. It makes you kind of feel comfortable just watching these guys play, because I say it again and again, I just can't hammer it enough. We watched a basketball game last night. That's what a basketball game looks like. Not a Kings game where it's kind of hero ball, one guy just kind of getting his shots up, which we've seen time and time again. Again, to pile on Buddy and Marvin, that's one of the things that kind of deterred a lot of people from watching and even would drive us up in Media Row crazy, is watching the Kings just go play after play. Buddy for a shot, okay, brick. Down to Marvin in the post, missed half hook. De'Aaron would get his shots. This is a team.
Even Fox and Tyrese kind of were guilty at times.
Well, Fox kind of became that guy too, as far as that's why his numbers were down, really. And I'm not saying it was Tyrese's fault, but Fox was trying to get his on his own, and Tyrese was getting his 9-10 assists per game. But
right, because it doesn't come to me naturally within the flow, so I just have to make it happen sometimes. Like,
that's forcing. That's the definition of forcing. Thinking you have to make it happen. And that's forcing. And De'Aaron was forcing a little more earlier in the season. So, yeah, I completely agree with you that having Dante Davion out there with Fox, with Harrison Barnes, who has been passing the ball a lot more lately and not taking as many shots, still being passive, and Sabonis, who is one of the best passing bigs in the league. It's a nice foundation for a distributing team next year.
Frankie, they survived a game where Harrison Barnes scored 6 points.
He had
6 points.
He had 2 points, I think, with 3 minutes left, and then he scored, I think, back to back. He scored right at the perfect time, but we were looking at each other just going, he's taking like 6-7 shots tonight. He has 2 points.
I never pulled this before. This is the 9th game of the season where Harrison was in single digits in points. How many do you think they won?
Out of 9?
Including the Chicago. This was the 9th.
I bet they're weirdly like 4 and 5.
This is the only win, actually.
Oh my God.
The only time.
Well, I wonder why. It makes sense. Harrison Barnes averages 17, 18 points per game, and our buddy Chris Watkins is a big he's very critical of Harrison and how he gets his numbers. But really, at the beginning, I don't think Harrison's attempted more than 17 field goals in a game, which is a lot of field goals, mind you. I'm not saying Harrison needs to go take 17, 18 field goals per game, but he needs to get his shots up. The team is the best version of itself when Harrison Barnes is being aggressive. Because if you add him into the fold last night, the Kings win that game easily. If Harrison Barnes is being aggressive the way we know. And I don't think that would take anything away from De'Aaron Fox or Sabonis or DiVincenzo or even Davion, who had a good night last night, if Harrison plays the way that he wants to play. Now, the question of that, though, is this the way that he wants to play? Is the way that he wants to play is just kind of being more passive and being more selective? Because I don't know if I'm fully in love with that, because he's a guy that is one of our better shooters. He is a force when he's driving into the paint. Kind of reminds me of how LeBron, he just has that big body, can just get in there and just get right to the rim. They need him to score. So can't have him be and again, this is if they want to win games. They don't need to win games right now. So maybe for the next 10 games, 11 games, be passive a little more. But
and like, when he's your 4th guy rather than your 3rd, it's okay that he every once in a while has, like, that he gives you an average of 16 or whatever it is. And then, the nights where he gives you 25 are great, of course. But when he's the 4th option instead of the 3rd, then you also, on the other hand, because while you'll get the jumps from 17 to 25, you're also going to get the drops from 17 to single digits every once in a while, and they just couldn't survive those before, unless you're getting an outlier performance from other guys, which, to be fair, that still is what last night was. Like, to get a combined 31 between Dante and DiVincenzo is an outlier. Dante and Davion is an outlier. But I think it just, speaks to the idea of getting more players that can step up when Harrison gets a little quiet, because it's not all that often. It's frustrating because when it happens, it's because he's not getting shots up. Mm-hmm. Like 6 points in that game. And then, like, just to go through some of these previous games, and these are just all going to be points, right? 6 last night. And then you have 18, 17, 23, 9, 27, 19, 23, 24, but then 14, 17, 6. Before that, 21, 30, 21, 24, 25, 19, 11, 16, 28, 4. So it doesn't happen that often. But, like, it's just sometimes going to be Harrison, I guess. Like, I don't know, beginning of the year, I was like, they're preaching him shooting so much more all the time. And I believed in it because we hadn't heard it before. It's just, to me, like, I think that sometimes you're going to get this with Harrison, and that's got to factor into your team building probably.
Yeah, it's geez, that's really loud in my ear. Sorry, girlfriend texted me. No, Harrison really does
The subtle flex.
Well, no, it's just like this. I have this new headphones, and with the notification thing on MacBooks, it's very loud, very loud. But no, Harrison is a guy that we know what he is at this point. We know what he is. I'm more concerned of how he fits next year, and that's something I think. I mean, how do you feel about that? So I'm not trying to move on from what you were talking about, but how do you feel about having him as a part of a team next year? Because we've been talking about him so much, and I think he is kind of like a topic of discussion about he needs to take more shots. But do you think he's a guy that will fit next year? Like, would you want him on that team with Sabonis and DiVincenzo and Fox, or do you think it's kind of a maybe he'll have to be moved to get a player like John Collins is a name that we've been talking about, or another kind of power forward? Is he kind of just that domino that's going to have to fall in order to upgrade the roster, or do you just want him on this team as that fourth option?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I want him as the fourth option. I think he's a really good fourth option. Like, I think he's an elite fifth option, but obviously that's asking a lot. The Kings aren't going to get enough talent to where he's a fifth option unless, yeah, it'd be ridiculous outlier outcome. I really like keeping Harrison around. I will say I think he's getting to a point where he's pretty tough on defense. Like he has this reputation of being a good defender. And while I've never viewed him as a bad defender, I don't know that I ever viewed him as like a clear positive.
Like a plus.
Yeah, like a slight plus maybe, but not like substantial.
I feel like he used to be, though. I mean, I have to look at the numbers, but I feel like he used to be a plus defender, right?
Yeah, probably like on the perimeter a little bit more. And now it's like he doesn't slide all that quick. He's like it's doesn't take long for a guy to be past him, and he has to turn his hips and kind of be chasing. Like I don't think we're at the point where Harrison's a bad defender. I do think that we're kind of like in an average range right now. But, you're getting average defense from a guy that's, again, like went through those points tallies from previous games. And still the overall numbers for Harrison looks so freaking good. And this is part of the frustration when you have games like last night. But 17 points, 6 boards, 2.5 assists on 47% from the field, 41% from three. Like the team desperately needs shooting. Harrison Barnes is shooting 41% from three. And after that, like your 3-point shooting just falls off a ginormous cliff right now. So I would love to keep Harrison. I guess all that being said, I think the latter of what you presented makes sense. That like if you are making a big splash, it kind of has to be Harrison. Because even just finances, like if you put together Rashawn Holmes and Justin Holiday, you can get a guy that's about $20 million. Like yesterday we looked at this, like Jeremy Grant, like that. You can get to that level of salary, and I think that those guys are kind of appealing as long as you're, the main asset going out would be the first round pick. And the same thing where if you're moving Harrison, to me you're including either this year's first round pick or other first round picks. Maybe if Davion is like considered one because a team likes him or something, that you're going out and making a substantial improvement, and you're using him because you needed that salary in order to get a John Collins, where you had to make it match, but at the same time, it's not just like Buddy Hield matching salary, where it's like, how do we feel about this contract? Like, I think Harrison's viewed as a good deal. He's just market value for what he is. Not strikingly positive, but he's not a negative deal. So I'm totally good with keeping Harrison around. I do worry that, like, say you trade him in the first round pick for John Collins. Like, I don't know that I do that deal necessarily, right? I genuinely don't know. But that sort of thing where you're trading for another guy that's all-star caliber, then you're in another situation where you're going to have another crappy starter alongside these three, because Harrison is the only, like Dante is working his way maybe towards this, and he can prove himself to be a starter caliber player. But outside of Fox and Sabonis, Harrison's the only starter caliber player on this team right now. So I worry about it, but I would understand like that if they're taking a really big swing for a guy that's already got a substantial paycheck, like kind of feels like he has to be the guy.
It's like an interesting conversation, though, because I feel like a lot of Kings fans would feel that way, too. That, hey, like, I'm cool if he stays on the team, but also if there is a trade, he kind of has to be the one that goes. And it's purely financial. I think at that point, I think if the Kings could keep Harrison Barnes, they would keep him and go get a big guy. But like you said, it's not really possible to do so without moving that contract. It's how you make the puzzle pieces work as far as bringing in more money. So um, I'm intrigued to see what happens with the draft pick, because maybe they could, if they get a top pick and they decide to move it with Rashawn, a package of Rashawn, the pick, and either Holiday or Davion for someone really big if they wanted to. Maybe there's a way to keep Harrison and go get a big talent, but seeing they need to upgrade at the power forward, he might be the one that has to go. But then again, that creates a hole at small forward, because the Kings have not had a good small forward. I mean, the good small forwards the Kings have had over the last 20 years are Peja, Ron Artest, Rudy Gay, and Harrison Barnes. They have not really had any other small forward in that time over 20 years that has been, I consider, a decent option. So, and yeah, I'm slandering John Salmons. For anyone listening, I'm giving him some slander. So
How dare you?
Travis
You're the only
Outlaw.
person in history to ever slander John Salmons.
Hey man, Kings, it should be in the rafters. They're about to bulldoze down Arco and the ghost of John Salmons 2 times he was here. So interesting conversation. It's gonna be a great topic of conversation in the offseason too, when we know where the Kings are drafting and people can kind of float those ideas of maybe they jump into the top 5 if they stay at 6 right now, or maybe they fall to 8 or 9. What does that mean for a potential package with Harrison Barnes, for a elite talent or a decent talent? Shout out John Salmons, legend, Dutch Kings fan. Yeah, he is. He was. That was a big part of the Jimmer Fredette trade. That was some big hype that day. I think I was excited because I was 16, 15, and John Salmons, when he was here before, was good. So when we got Jimmer Fredette, people thought, wow, we got the best scorer in college and John Salmons, who was great here last time. Kings are on their way. Didn't work out that way.
But this year's different. This is different.
This year's different. I mean, a 44, 45-year-old John Salmons come back for, 3rd time's a charm. He could be what the Kings need to break the curse.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe that's what they need.
Who knows, Brendan? That's the thing. Who knows?
We do not. The team has not in the past, and hopefully they do now. It's going to be interesting going through these next couple games, because if they can continue to show significant stretches, 30 minutes of the game against, championship caliber teams, then I'm going to kind of continue to find hope in that. And I think that the reason that the Dante thing is so important is, as a guy that we were looking at, or at least I was, as somebody that was potentially a long-term piece on this team, and you don't have many guys that you can really comfortably say that about. So for him to emerge in the way that he did in that game, and hopefully continues to as we go here, and yeah, I love that you pointed out that this next game is against Milwaukee, and I somehow never pieced that together, because oh god, if he doesn't start, I'm gonna riot, dude. I would be so... I'm
already over. I'm over it.
He'll start. He has to.
Dude, I don't think so. I just don't think he's going to. I think that Justin Holiday's going to start I bet Justin Holiday starts through Sunday against Phoenix, and then I think the Kings will probably be, I'm guessing, unless they keep playing. I mean, that was a surprising win last night. If they win by some chance the next 3 against Milwaukee, Boston, and Phoenix, yeah, we can have a different discussion. But they probably will be completely out of the play-in race, like mathematically, come Monday. Then maybe we could see Dante starting the last 6-7 games. But I'm telling you right now, I have a bad feeling that tomorrow we're going to get into that room and Alvin's going to say, yeah, Justin's back. Starting him.
Oh,
Play Dante. Just play Dante the last 11 games of the season. It's not going to hurt the team. You could argue if they're going for wins, it might even help them if that's what they're still interested in. If that's what Alvin and the front office want, maybe that'll help you if you want to win games. You won last night.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I also don't know what to make of Dante going against his former team, because he's erratic and trying to do too much sometimes and kind of prone of fitting that bill on a couple occasions. Part of me is does that mean we see more of that? Or does this mean that maybe he's just kicking ass on defense, or is there like a who knows? It could go either direction, right? Like kind of how I feel about when Buddy plays against this
That
Kings
was
team. He's
that
either
was what I was
going to
gonna
light
say.
us up or he's going to shoot crazy shit where we're like, oh yeah, I don't miss that
Well,
guy.
I was telling someone on Twitter the other day that it's going to be a painful night either way because the Kings and Pacers are battling for that 5th spot in the lottery. So either the Kings are going to win, and it's going to hurt because you're going to lose a whole game on that 5 spot, or it's going to hurt because the Pacers are going to win, and the Pacers are going to beat you by Tyrese and Buddy most likely. So no matter what is that? The 24th, I think, is when that game is. It's going to hurt. Is it 24th?
23rd, actually.
23rd. I was
How
close.
dare you?
Off the top of
How dare you?
off the top of my head though. Come on.
I couldn't tell you what today is without looking at it, so
I
that's fine. We showed up at the stadium yesterday, and somebody's like, "Oh, like it's good for a Monday." I'm like, "Oh shit, it's Monday." Like,
I know what day it is because we have these like little poll calendar things with like a fact. Today's fact is: did you know the 4 ghosts in Pac-Man are programmed to act differently? Red chases you, pink tries to position itself in a set way, blue tries to ambush you, orange is random. So if you're playing Pac-Man, you can give me some thanks
wow.
at your local arcade.
Orange is random. There's a Dante DiVincenzo metaphor somewhere in here. That is amazing, Frank. We're gonna have to have you read these every episode
down.
because
Hey, man.
I love that.
Got the whole year right here. We got
When's the last
plenty.
time you played Pac-Man?
Honestly, I'm 27. Probably when I was like 9, but
Okay,
I have my Game Boy still.
Not long.
I've had a Game Boy.
John Solomon's years.
Yeah, John Solomon's years, the first
Part
one,
one,
probably.
yeah.
Yeah. I have my Game Boy over here, and I played it during lockdown, like in COVID a year ago or 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Yikes. So I was playing all the games I had. I don't think I got to Pac-Man. I mostly stuck with like Pokemon and like NBA Jam, the old NBA Jam, 2003 or whatever. But I now have that information, and there's a Pac-Man contest out there in Sacramento. If there's like some kind of retro gaming fair, I'm gonna show up, and I'm cleaning house.
There we go. Yeah. Little detail you left out. It's actually all Pac-Man facts for 365 of
Yeah,
that.
it's all Pac-Man. Yeah, but Pac-Man was developed by this guy who went to
Right.
college here. Let's talk about
Yeah.
that college.
And his roommate was
His roommate. It's like every single day for a whole year.
Right. Yeah. This is what we have to do to get by. And
It is.
and we have entertaining basketball and we still get to Pac-Man. Can't help it. I guess real quick, I got suckered into I never I played Pokemon when I was younger, right? Like Game Boy Switches, like elementary school. Or not Game Boy Switches, Game Boy Colors. And
the OG.
yeah, and enjoyed it, but never didn't keep playing longer as I know some of my friends did. But then I got suckered into playing the new it's like Arceus or something on the Switch,
Yeah.
and I really enjoy it. I
You
also
Switch?
used to play a lot. I do. I used to play. My girlfriend does, so I pretty much do. She didn't play it. I used to play a lot of games and then kind of fell out of it, and then got told that I should probably get back to just chilling sometimes. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna try this Pokemon game. Pretty good.
It's fun to
Pretty
just
good.
play video game. I mean, I only play sports games, so let me ask you. I know we're probably at the end of it, but what is your stance on 2K? I think people have kind of like a hard stance of, wow, I hate it, I don't play it anymore, or I love it. I kind of just started getting back into it, but I don't. I mean, I only do my career mode. Do you play 2K or do you care for 2K? Do you fancy 2K?
I used to play a stupid amount of 2K.
Like career mode or GM mode or just
I
kind
was
of
my team.
My team.
The
Okay.
cards. Yeah. I love team building shit. Like if I am playing with a friend, for example, at the same place, then I'll do a fantasy draft of the entire league and we'll draft a team together and then play it. I just love team building shit, so I kind of gravitated towards my team. And then at some point it was just I always get frustrated when I'm you're treating this like a fucking video game, not a basketball simulator. Like, I get so fucking pissed all the time in that game when people are just cheesing and doing shit that does not happen. Because I'm over here, like, trying to make the right rotations and shit. And
You being realistic.
yeah, I'm being nerdy and lame as fuck when nobody else is
No,
doing
man.
this. But
You're a basketball mind, a creator.
oh,
You-
yeah.
You're the Monty McNair of NBA 2K.
Yeah. Hopefully, I have a big improvement this offseason too.
The Vladi.
So,
You're the Vladi Divac of NBA 2K.
yeah. Even like when this one came out, I played it a lot at the beginning, but I think there was something about it. I think they like changed the shooting or something like this, and it was just a janky enough change with like the controls that I already had too many moments of being frustrated because it was just felt like bullshit too often, where it was like, all right, that was enough for me that I fell out of it. But I mean, even like when that one came out, I played it a stupid amount, and like I used to play a
Well,
whole lot
how
of
you,
2K.
how it usually goes is I play at the beginning and then I kind of get over it. Then the trade deadline happens and I go, oh, a bunch of new players, a bunch of new situations. Then I get back into it. And right now I'm kind of just on career mode. And I like to always get traded to the Kings because I like seeing them make the playoffs.
Like watching your characters just go through
I-
shit.
I took them to the playoffs. I ended the drought. Yeah, just because I've been waiting since I was 11.
What
what a
position do you make?
Point guard, just because you have the ball in your hands. And also, I
True.
when I did play basketball, I was a point guard. And again, I probably played minutes comparable to Josh Jackson, which I wouldn't play probably 7-8 games, and I'd play 2 minutes. So, but I'm small, so I was a point guard. I make it a realistic 6'3", like 200
There you
pounds,
go.
because I'm
Yeah.
pretty much that big.
Yeah.
5'8", 170. But who's keeping track? But
Not
what
you,
about,
clearly.
what about you? Do you do like a shooting guard, or do you do?
Yeah, I definitely get the point guard thing. I don't play my career that often. Like last year, I think I made like a slashing wing right before. Okay, so the last one I remember like really playing my career a lot was I was a 2 or 3 on the Nets, back when it was D'Lo and Levert and just those guys. It was like the Atkinson young Nets, and I was like the 3 that was the star. And it was like funnily a moment of like, holy shit, this team has a whole lot of really good role players. If they could just like insert one really good guy, and then it happened. So I thought that was kind of funny. But this year was the first time where I was like, I might play like the My Park thing with friends. If I ever, I didn't end up getting some of those, so it fell through, but the friends.
Oh,
But
man. Come on.
Frank will never play 2K with me. This is the whole point of this conversation, actually.
I'll play
No.
2K. Tyrese should be playing 2K with you.
It's
You guys-
true.
You guys
It's
talked
true.
about it, I thought.
I'm going to follow through in the off season there.
Yeah.
This year I made a big. The idea was center, but you're too slow. So I'd rather like make a 4 that's just like quick and longer.
Like athletic.
Yeah, like
'Cause
I
if you're-
just made
you're
like a
5
peak Mo Harkless,
Yeah. Yeah. Portland will Harkless. So if you're a 5, you just kind of camp out in the paint on 2K and you just wait and you just kind of putting your hand, just trying to call
Yeah.
for the ball the whole time.
Like
I don't
I'm
know.
just there blocking shots and rebounding and
That'd be fun.
screening. And is that fun?
Well,
I
no,
think
I mean,
so, but I don't think most people do.
I'd rather have the ball in my hands. But the last thing about my player, I'm a point guard and I like to get a bunch of assists and stuff. It's just kind of I like to do the alley oops or find guys that are slashing, and my numbers are kind of similar to like what Tyrese is doing in Indiana, like 20 and 9 per game, and it's kind of like making me think, like if the Kings could have had Sabonis with Fox and Tyrese, they'd be really good. But obviously, there's no way to do that. But
Well,
kind of
what
makes it,
year are you going into the draft, Frankie? Like you're the clear solution here.
I don't know, man. I mean, hey, it's never too late. Never
After
too
you
late.
graduate high school.
Yeah, I'll graduate high school this summer, and then we'll kind of see. I have a growth spurt in me.
Yeah,
We'll see.
definitely.
I got a foot in me.
What
So,
number are you in 2K?
My favorite number is 3, but
Okay.
3 is taken by Terrence Davis, so I'm 33. What about you?
I do number 1. That was
Wow.
my first. I know, right? It says a whole lot about me, Like,
Yeah,
let's
man.
really read into these.
Pretty egotistical.
Yeah, that was the first number I ever had when I played. And I remember, of course, like I get my first number and I'm like, oh, who is this? You know? And T-Mac was, I think, the one that stood out to me.
That's what
I
came
think
to
it was
mind.
Orlando T-Mac.
They both had both of the T-Macs, both Orlando and Houston had their moments though.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was sick. That's sick. That's a good reason. That's a good reason.
It was just, my first one. I always don't mind 9. Like, I just had a genuine obsession with Rondo growing up.
Dude,
which
yeah.
I know is not a popular thing with Kings fans, but
Yeah,
I was a Celtics guy
No,
growing up.
you're talking to the right guy. I'm a huge Rondo Kings guy. I was so excited when they got him, and I was enamored with his big stat lines every night while people were saying, Frank, you should stuff in the stat sheet. I don't care. All right, they played so horrible. I don't care. I'm having fun watching him go for 11 and 15.
He's one of the guys that I very much ended up like taking things that he did, like the whole like faking a layup and then like reverse pivot, or the fake behind the back.
The fake behind the back,
like
yeah.
Those were like, and I think I like did them like once or twice, and then my dad was like, oh, like been like trying to be like Rondo. I'm like, I didn't even realize, but you're definitely right because I love this guy.
I guess I just am him.
Yeah, I guess like Pops, it's just natural. I'm just that guy. Like I don't know what to tell you.
What can I tell you? What can I say?
God. Yeah. So, I think that this Kings team is in a good position if they're able to draft Frankie next year and Brendan 2 years down the line.
Yep, we're on the way. We're on the way.
Yeah.
Stay on the
Monty,
lookout.
hit us
for
up. You know where to find us.
That 33 Kings jersey and that number 1 Kings jersey coming at you.
We'll be downstairs later today if you need to talk to us. Let us know.
Yeah.
So,
We're going to the facility in 2 hours. We'll see you then.
there we go.
Get our workout in.
Anything else, Frankie, before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. I'm looking outside right now. It's a rainy day, so that's interesting. So
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, I'll end it
Where
with
did this come from?
I'll end it with nice to have our one rainy day of the year, and yeah, big week coming up. Still, we got Milwaukee, Boston, Phoenix. So a lot of big teams coming through. And tomorrow again, just once again, the Kings have not beaten the Bucks in 6 years. Whoever's keeping track out there, 12-game losing streak. So
It's time to change the culture and the history of this franchise, and that starts tomorrow.
tomorrow, might have already started. It might have already started.
It has, yeah. Yeah, obviously has. There's no might have. Like, if you disagree, I don't know. I can't possibly understand your opinion. Shout out Rich Ivanowski.
Yep.
All right. Franklin Cardicelli, at F Cardicelli on Twitter, KHDK, Return of the Roar. And then Brendan is myself. That was so awkward. I usually don't do this part, clearly.
Future point guard and shooting guard of the Sacramento Kings.
It's true.
Because 2K told us.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
We'll be the ones getting yelled at because our backup should be playing over us, and I'm really looking forward to that.
While we still cover the team, we'll get right off a game and just go record a podcast.
Yeah, I think this is a flawless game plan. Gonna have to put together this business plan and really do it. By the way, chat says, "Ooh, the shot at Ivanowski. Rich is my guy."
That's
He
all
knows
love.
it.
That's
So,
all love.
Just to be clear to listeners, Rich is my guy. He was on like 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. It's all
yeah.
love.
All right. Well, speaking of Rich and all the other great guys and gals at the Kings Herald, definitely take a look at this site there and all the great content that they're producing on the regular, and take a look at the Patreon to support local independent Kings coverage. And if you enjoyed this episode of the Kings Pulse podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, and hear from us again in the next couple of days.